to another episode of the Black Powder Podcast. The primer is hit, the powder is lit. It's time to get on target. With me today, I have a special guest, Mr. Will of I Run and I Gun Firearms Training. If you would, sir, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Will. I'm located in Delaware. Firearms trainer as well as, I shoot competition. I'm technically not a competition shooter anymore, but I do help people get into the competition world for those who are interested.
Cool. You said that kind of like Rambo, like, I don't do that anymore.
I don't talk about that part of my life anymore.
So if you got like a best friend that's a colonel or whatever, and they tie him up in the competition range, it sounds like you got to go back and get him.
Hey man, had to get on that helicopter and get my M60.
That'll be the next action move right there.
Yeah, right.
But today's topic was one I was thinking about for a minute, and it will basically be facts versus feelings, gun ownership based on brand stigma, and why black people refuse to buy certain firearms. So what I've noticed is there's a lot of people on some of the social media platforms that'll say, for example, Kel-Tec, I won't purchase Kel-Tec because they had dealings with George Zimmerman, or something happened at this gun range because they were treated poorly, or something happened between one gun manufacturer as far as dealing with certain people in a certain area. It's mainly just feelings over the fact that when it comes to certain firearms, we as black people don't really have, I guess you could say, much ownership. So that's one thing that I feel, I guess you could say, I usually think, but in this case, I feel is something that we need to get over as far as being, in a sense, brand new to this social sphere, or this community in general. But at the end of the day, guns don't give a damn about your feelings. So, Will, would you agree or disagree with that?
I'm kind of in the middle because I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to support a company like, let's say, Kel-Tec, right? Mm-hmm. Because how they back Zimmerman, right?
Right.
And I don't know if this is true, but allegedly they gave him a tour of the place and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I heard about that too.
The problem, like, I'm all for, quote unquote, voting with our dollars, right? So let companies know where we stand, and how we feel based on our buying habits, right? Our spending habits. Excuse me. The only thing I will say is that there probably isn't a company that manufactures firearms that wants us to have their products, like at the highest level, right? Mm-hmm. So at some point you're going to get to a point where it's like, all right, well, what do I buy then? If I can't buy a Sig, if I can't buy a Canik or Walther, whatever it is, then what do I buy? So it's kind of a rabbit hole, but on the outskirts, I have no issue with the Kel-Tec thing. I don't know if that's because I have no issue or no desire to own any Kel-Tec products anyway, so maybe it's easy for me to say that. I don't know. If it was Glock, would I feel different? That's what I normally shoot. I guess I would feel different, but I think there's a limit on how far we can go with like a boycott or something like that, because like you said, we don't own, for the most part, a large enough system of manufacturing that we can just go to our own and say, all right, I'm going to buy Everett's brand, right? I'm going to buy, this sister's brand, and we're going to stick with that. So until that happens, we're going to be forced to purchase from people that might not like us.
Yeah, true. And I definitely agree with voting with your dollars as well. I guess I try and find a loophole through that because way before I even knew about the George Zimmerman thing with Zimmerman and Kel-Tec, I had purchased a KSG. Okay. And afterwards, especially in was it BGOE, there was a lot of people talking about why they wouldn't back Kel-Tec and how they feel about Kel-Tec. But in my opinion, I already spent the money purchasing a Kel-Tec. Now, it wasn't exactly through the manufacturer. I believe I purchased it through Gunbroker. So, in a sense, I don't know. It's kind of one of those outskirt things where you do own something from the manufacturer, but at the same time, the money didn't directly go to the manufacturer. At least not from you. So, I don't know, man. It's just, I guess I'm looking at it through loopholes. But I also know that the history of guns No matter if it was in Africa, in Europe, in Asia, in America, whatever, there's always some negative history. And you just really can't turn your nose up at anything, especially seeing as how they were, and I hate to use the term, quote unquote weapons of war. Not talking about the modern firearms, but back then, what they were used for. Not only were they used for home protection, but they were also used in wars as well. So based on which side was using what at the time, you can't really turn your nose up and say, oh, okay, well, this Luger was used by the Nazis, the Germans, so I don't think I want to touch it. But then you go and you turn around and you get an HK. If you want to take it that deep, you should say, oh, I don't want to use a German-made gun because of what happened in World War II. There's certain things that you have to realize and overcome. At least that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're limited in our choices. So, I mean, at some point, if you're going to want quality, you're going to have to buy from what's out there. It kind of is what it is. There's no way around it.
Yeah, it's very true. Because, I mean, I hate to even say this, but, I do pray and I do believe, but at the end of the day, I know it'll take a lot more than my prayers to stop somebody that has the intent of doing myself harm, my family harm, my friends harm. Because just because I pray doesn't mean that there's somebody out there that's not saying their own version of a prayer, like something to the degree of, dear Lord, please help me rob this bank and also rob this family on the way out. And please let my aim be true as I shoot at the man on the way out as well. But
true indeed.
I think that would probably turn my daughter into like some version of Batgirl or Batwoman or something. So if that's how it has to go down.
Right.
Not saying I want to get shot. Anyway. But
I feel you on that.
Yeah. But I guess that brings that's a good segue to the next question, which is the average image of gun ownership gun ownership is not one that reflects our own. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because it's like when the average person closes their eyes and thinks of a gun owner, they probably think of, I'm just saying the average quote unquote American, right? I'm not saying like us or them. But most people probably think a guy with a hunting rifle over his shoulder, or someone protecting their family, or some kind of military image. If we pop up in, especially in their head, then it's going to be something negative. It's going to be something that's dealing with violence or with something illegal, right? We're robbing a bank, we're selling drugs, or we're just posing with the gun, in some unorthodox fashion. It's turned 90 degrees sideways,
Street life, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not the same image that they get. And if we have identical images, then somehow ours is automatically negative, even though the guns are exactly the same, the people are exactly dressed the same. Ours is going to be looked at as being negative when it's not. So that's just something that we have to work on changing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's exactly one reason why I even started this podcast, because and I hate to say it, but the one image that you said as far as father or family protecting themselves, I don't really see the modern mindset of people come to that conclusion. I think that gets pushed down the most, which is ironic because with the influx of gun purchases made by our own people back in 2020,
right?
That's not what all, because I believe it was a large percentage. It was probably like maybe 80%, I think. But no matter what the numbers are, that doesn't mean that 80% of all black people are going to be doing a 90-degree pointing with the handguns, or running down the street with high points, drinking malt liquor with the pants sagging. I mean, no, that's the image that not just society, but media and pretty much anything else paints of us, because we don't really own our own social media outlets. And if we do, it has to follow that certain, okay, we'll only back you if and only if you do it the way we say it. So as far as painting a positive image, I know it's a big goal, but it's one that has to happen because as compared to everyone else, we are actually behind on utilizing and learning our Second Amendment rights. So in order for us to actually make headway with that, we are going to have to destroy the old image and put up the truth. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, true indeed. Excuse me. Even from our own people, from our own perspective, there's a lot of us who, and because of whether it's just listening to the media or just maybe where they grew up, their experiences, a lot of our own people have a negative idea when they think of a gun. So you could talk to them about gun ownership and automatically they feel like, all right, well, only people that need guns are criminals or people that are about to commit a crime, right? And not just,
Right.
you know, Joe Blow person that wants to make sure his family is safe at night. So, I mean, we definitely have our work cut out for us.
Yeah, we do, and I definitely agree with that. And that reminds me of a friend of mine. He was born and raised in Flint, Michigan, so he definitely, by all means, has a right to turn away from this community because he's seen some things growing up, and I can't blame him. I actually offered to bring him to a range one day, and he said, "I didn't say I want to shoot any guns. I'm good," and I can't blame him because everything he's been through. So that I can understand. But like most people do nowadays, you feel and you assume without doing the research. You become a PhD of Facebookology, if you will, or you know, a YouTube graduate or whatever you want to call it. It's just people always assume without actually doing the research, without doing their due diligence. So I think that's why not only what we deal with as black people is something that happens, but also dealing with certain brands of guns and what we actually portray to them. It's kind of like when I can't remember the exact Instagram profile, and this is anecdotal, so you know it's my experience, but nonetheless, it was a Canik, or if you want the actual Turkish pronunciation, the Janik Instagram page that was posting some gangster-like stuff about the Canik handguns, and rightfully so, because Canik does make up a certain part of, I think, the Turkish police, if not the army. Don't quote me on that, but I know they're involved in basically defense like business, like police or military. So to have their image placed alongside one of literally somebody doing some illegal crime or whatever, because let's be honest, the gangster image isn't exactly the most flattering one out there. As soon as somebody sees, you know, a black person with their pants sagging, it's not going to be the most positive thing. So now you got the black person with their pants sagging holding the gun at the 90-degree angle, and now you're sharing that image with the actual gun manufacturer on their Instagram. I highly believe that this is one reason why it's hard to find any black sponsorships whenever it comes to certain brands, because they've got that stigma, like you said a minute ago, that this is what black people look like with firearms. So it would be great to overcome that, and if there's any solution to start that process, that's what we need to work on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, sometimes we prove them right.
Yeah.
Which it just sets us back even farther. Then we have to fight even harder to overcome that. Because then they could always say, "Oh, well, you know, this person here, look what they're doing. These are exactly the stereotypes that we say, and look, he's every last one of them."
God, yeah. What's the?
Sometimes I feel like they find those people, to be honest with you. So I don't know, because it goes along with their narrative, you know.
Yeah, I mean the media has been doing that for the longest time. Like, okay, so if we say Ahmaud Arbery, right, which he's the most recent victim that I can think of, unfortunately, but nonetheless, when they found his picture, they put up, it was like almost like one of those high school senior pictures. He was wearing a suit, had a blue background, he was smiling, and I think as soon as they painted him in a negative light, they started digging back into his history, digging back into the social media, and they started bringing out all the questionable photos, which is always funny to me because it seems like anytime it involves a black person, they're like, okay, let's see what they got. All right, he's wearing his hat backwards. Cool, that's going to be the perfect photo that we can use to frame. It's sad at this point.
It's their standard playbook. Dig into their past, find what you can, even if that was 20 years ago, or even if it was completely unrelated to what just happened. You know, even if I did commit a crime 20 years ago, that has nothing to do with what is going on right now. If the police do something against me right now, what I did 20 years ago is irrelevant.
Right.
But you already know that's their standard playbook. If they can make us less than human or less valued, then it's easier to push that, oh, well, they deserved it, or that was a criminal anyway, or, you know, it just makes their job easier.
Right. And I know
Propaganda.
Right. I know one of the biggest phrases I hate to hear is actually I'll give you two. The first one is not all. So if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with somebody and I'm talking about something that has actually happened, and then it gets into a certain topic where you're trying to let them know, yeah, this is what happened, this is why it happened to this person, and this is why they need to act on it as soon as possible. But when that person gets triggered and in their feelings, they'll suddenly say, well, not all, you know, like in the case of those two idiots that shot him. We don't know what the whole neighborhood was made up of, and I can't remember the actual facts, but I think there were some rumors saying that it was kind of racist in there. But you'll have that one person that'll pop up. Like, let's say, for example, it was a racist neighborhood. That one person always pops up in their feelings, and they say, well, not all those people in the neighborhood are racist. It doesn't matter, because you saying not all continues to portray the defense of those people. Instead of saying not all, you should be getting upset and trying to fix it just like everybody else, instead of giving somebody a free pass.
Yep. It's just part of their deflection tactics, man. Because it's not all, but we're not talking about the entire neighborhood. We're talking about the people that took this action that they shouldn't have. So the other people don't matter. So they bring up people that aren't relevant to the story. And if you're not smart enough, you'll fall for it.
Right. You know, in my opinion, not all is just, you know, it's just a way to make yourself sleep better at night. That's all it really is. And it kind of reminds me of, was it Ferguson? I can't remember. Oh, God, it's been so long. I can't remember what city had all the police action going on. It was literally like the neighborhood versus the police, and they started bringing out the tanks and everything. But it was around the same time that Robin Williams died. And I found it interesting that all of the negative things going on over in that city was plastered all over the news. You couldn't change a channel without seeing some type of quote-unquote law enforcement military action going on. But as soon as Robin Williams dies, the story just disappears. You don't get any updates. You don't know what's going on. And the story just fades away. Something always happens like that. I don't know why. It's weird. It's like they spin a wheel and say, okay, which star are we going to sacrifice now in order to change this narrative? But
they can turn on and off the outrage at will, and sometimes we're stupid enough to fall for it. So just like in that same thing, they can push, and I don't want to say push, because sometimes it's just reporting. What's happening is what's happening, right?
Right.
But like you said, they can turn that off, and now they're showing you another story, and then people will just like completely forget about anything else that's happening. Like, oh, look at that shiny rock over there. Oh, look at that shiny rock. And that's what happens in this day and age, that people, I call it social media mad. But you're mad and you're frustrated, but it only lasts about 10 minutes until Kanye West says something, and then now you're worried about Kanye West, and now this reality TV star is getting divorced, and now you're talking about how that's affecting something, and this person's dating a trans person, so now you focus on that. Like, we jump from one thing to the next, and we never focus on any one thing. That's why we don't get anything done.
Right.
We can't stay focused on one thing.
It's True. Meanwhile, you're over here banging on the keyboard trying to get your, quote unquote form of justice out through social media, and you're only putting more paper on the fire, more fuel, whatever you want to put on the fire. That's what's being done. But the second phrase I hate the most is when somebody comes along, different race, whatever, and they say I'm colorblind. That's the equivalent of saying not all. As a matter of fact, both of those phrases probably happen in the same conversation. But the thing that gets me is that it's real easy for somebody to say that they're colorblind, but there's so many intersections in society nowadays to where if something were to go wrong, like say for example, I'm hanging out with a friend of mine who's I don't know, I'll just say a different ethnicity, right? Okay. And then something happens, police get involved, and I know automatically, I hate to even say it, but 9 times out of 10 I'm probably going to be the target because of how the situation is. Now granted, anytime police are around, I'm the last person to get into my emotions and start popping off at the mouth or anything, because the last thing I want to do is bring more negative attention to me whenever there's already a small layer of tension there already. Because sometimes it doesn't really matter the color of the officer. It's just the fact that people will always have preconceived notions about what's going on. And that could happen in a tense situation, or that can happen in a calm situation. Kind of like the police officer that was doing the routine traffic stop in California, I think it's near the Mexican border, questions the guy, he gets out, I think he asked him if he could get something, so the guy said sure. He goes to the passenger side, pulls out a AR, takes out the police officer, and it was a calm, seemed like a civilized exchange until that happened. So if I were to do the same thing, I don't know if it would end, I don't know if it would be as civilized or peaceful or whatever, but regardless, they have that mindset. Like, I have to go home safely at night. So I get that. But the last thing I need is somebody who says I don't see color to start popping off on my behalf, making the situation worse, and then causing something to where I could be the one that ends up getting shot. It's real easy for somebody to say, I don't see color. Leave him alone, he's black. Leave him alone, he's black. He don't need that. Y'all always treat him like that. And I don't need that. If I got the situation under control, that's one thing. But just because you say you don't see color, and then you turn around and you start bringing up my color, that kind of defeats the purpose of even saying something like that in the first place. So, but those are just my 2 phrases I hate to hear uttered on a consistent basis.
Yeah, anyone says they don't see color is lying.
Right.
100% lying. Like, what you're really saying is, I see color, but I choose to ignore it. If you're truly a good person, or you're just saying, I know what you're going through, but it doesn't affect me, so I'm going to ignore it.
Right. In all honesty, with both of them, if you know what the situation is, I don't need you to come up and say it. I would much rather have your actions speak for themselves.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm just a dude behind a microphone doing a podcast, right?
right. Yeah, I'm just a dude right with you, man.
Right.
I don't do that whole, I don't see color. All right, well, you need to get away from me, because clearly you're not dealing with reality, or you're a liar. And it's more likely that you're a liar.
Right.
You ain't gonna tell me you didn't walk up to me and notice that I was a black man. There's no way.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And I honestly think, I've always thought this, but racism isn't just about skin color. Skin color is just the upper surface of it. It's always been about money, period. If I can get this group of people to hate this group of people, then it takes the pressure off of having you realize what's actually going on. It's like almost like the Wizard of Oz effect. I'm over here, like, I'm the dude that's producing racism, so I'm over here, I'm pushing all this hate into the narratives and everything. Then the curtain gets pulled back. I look at you and I say, oh, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, and I close the curtain back and keep pushing it out because it puts money in pockets. So the system always needs anybody to continue the flow of hate just so they can continue to make money.
And it's also about control too. So I mean, there's a couple actions. I mean, I agree with what you said.
Well,
then you also have the control aspects. There's a number of aspects to it.
Yeah, I mean, money is just a fraction of what it is, and I say money because it's easier for those who are in control to continue to have a flow of liquidity versus making it equal for everybody to have that liquidity, and then they can do whatever they need to and have their own version of power so they can take care of themselves, their community, their families, friends, whatever. But if I take that away from you and put that liquidity into what I have going on, it's just easier to continue to pump that form of power, that one portion of power, into my plan. There's also influence, there's also network, so many other different aspects of what actual power is. But the easiest way, in my opinion, to continue that growth, if you will, of that power is to control the people.
Yeah.
So that's just how I look at that, though.
Yeah. Just almost every aspect of our lives is controlled by somebody that doesn't have our best interests at heart. Whether it's what we eat, and and you can say ingest, and you can also lump in radio, TV, all types of media in that, because you're taking that in as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're feeding your body, or your person, these images and sounds and everything else, and all that is designed to make you feel or act a certain way, and it works.
Right. Whether
it's just them keeping you sick so that you can, make sure that you require medication or whatever it is that are going to fill somebody's pockets or something else. I mean, it's all an angle. Like they say, ask a question, the answer is money.
True. I also think it's accountability isn't as popular as it used to be, because if more people, especially nowadays, would take accountability for their actions, they wouldn't have to worry about trying to find excuses for certain things that are going on in their lives. Like if I sit back and I eat 1,000 Whoppers from Burger King, and all of a sudden my heart gets jacked up and I gain a lot of weight, I can't blame Burger King for that. And I've at my job, I've heard this before. It's just, you're blaming somebody for giving you something that you asked for, but then you're saying that you're upset because they gave it to you whenever they know you shouldn't have had it. That's you're just skirting around the main problem, which is the fact that you knew what the outcome was. Now, granted, I like my Whoppers, don't get me wrong. Could I eat better? Yes, I definitely could. But I also know that I need to take accountability as far as my health, because the last thing I want to do is look up and I'm, getting uber liposuction or something because I've made poor choices. That goes with health, money, people you're with, friends, family. I mean, it's all the above. So I really hope accountability 2024, I hope it happens,
We've pretty much turned our backs on accountability just as a unit. If you think about it now, if we're friends or we know each other or whatever, and I'm like, hey man, you probably don't want to do this. Now I'm a hater, right? Or I'm shaming or whatever it is. If I'm telling you the truth, then either I'm shaming or I'm a hater or something else similar. Instead of just someone like, hey, this person was cared about you enough to tell you the truth. And even it might be an uncomfortable truth or a truth that they know you might not want to hear. It might even be hard for them to say it, but they cared enough just to let you know. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather tell you the truth and you say, what, I'm never talking to you again, than to bite my tongue and not say it. That's just me. But people in my circle, they already know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say some shit. And I'm not always right, but I'm gonna speak my mind. If I think something is going the wrong way, then I'm gonna speak up. And then I expect the people in my circle to do the same for me. Like, hey, Will, you're messing up. Okay, well, break that down for me. How am I messing up? And I might say, I agree with you, and I might say, I don't agree. But at least we had that conversation, right?
Right.